Hey, it's Joe. Subscribe for more horror stories. I've been passionate about the idea of time travel for as long as I can remember. When I was a kid, it was a fun idea, and I read a lot of science fiction books about it. But by the time I entered college and heard about people taking it seriously, my life changed. I explored everything from mathematics, physics, and even philosophy. 10 years later, I was finally recruited for a research team on the subject of time travel. It's been a wild and exciting journey for me because I genuinely love what I do. But I've also discovered this is a ruthless field, and most people do not feel hopeful or interested in it. The result? I work with just 2 other people in a small, cramped lab with secondhand equipment and a minimum budget. We might even be mocked by the press, but I don't think we're considered that important. Luckily, we have more than enough passion to keep us going. My name is Kevin Díaz. I'm the youngest one on our team, but the biggest dreamer. Then there is Samantha, our slightly messy mechanical engineer working on the actual machine. And last but not least, Kiana, who is as much of a nerd as I am. I was sure that together we would reach a big breakthrough soon. I never imagined the breakthrough would reach us. We were hard at work one day. Kiana was at her computer, furiously typing and regularly pausing for her old computer to catch up. I was going over our usual notes and try to ignore the sounds of Samantha's tools. When we heard Kiana speak up, Sam and I stopped what we were doing, because every time she addressed us, it was for something significant that would matter to all of us. But we didn't expect how unsettling her words would be. She spoke slowly and almost coolly at first, but by the time she was finished, it was obvious some fear had snuck into her tone, which was the scariest thing I could have imagined coming from my dear friend. She said, "Kevin, check the energy levels immediately. Then I want us all to take refuge. I think we are in severe trouble." With trembling fingers, because I had never heard her so worried, I stared at our screens with absolute disbelief in my eyes. Is this an explosion? Here, I asked her. She returned my incredulous look and answered, "Yes. Well, I think it's going to happen soon." "Get over here!" Samantha yelled at us. She had made quite the scandal, dropping her tools and odd pieces of metal everywhere. She was holding an electric screwdriver like it was a gun and waved at us from our small bathroom, where she was already hiding. My partner and I ran over there and the door had barely closed when everything started shaking. The ground below us, the walls around us, the door was shaking so badly, I thought it was about to fall off its hinges. Then we started to feel warm, very warm. The temperature was escalating as if we'd been dropped into an oven. Then we felt as if our ears popped. Like all the sound was being sucked away and the silence left behind was deafening. Next, the lights started flickering, faster and faster until all the light bulbs shattered at once. We gasped, and when we tried to breathe again, we struggled, as if invisible hands were at our throats and the oxygen had magically vanished. That's when, at last, came the explosion, but not like we would have expected. All at once, everything trembled. We were pretty much raised from the floor and dropped again as if the room had been shaken by a giant. We watched in disbelief as the door of the bathroom fell down, and we glimpsed at the flames, and sparks erupting in the laboratory. Then, right before our eyes, a millisecond before the door completely hit the ground, everything stopped. We were held in suspension for what felt like a full minute. Then the flames retracted. The door raised and returned firmly to its place. The pieces of glass floated back up to the ceiling, rearranged themselves into perfectly functional light bulbs. Our lungs filled with air and we exhaled heavily. The regular sounds of the day came back on. The beating of our hearts, the leak in the sink, the quiet buzz of our computers, and footsteps coming from the other room. The 3 of us were deadly quiet, scared out of our minds. But the footsteps got closer and closer. Finally, the door of the bathroom opened up slowly. We were gathered in fear in the corner of the bathroom when we first saw him. He was tall, and his body looked strong, though not overly muscular. At first, I thought he was wearing a deeply strange suit, but I was wrong. He wore a simple pair of pants and a t-shirt, but both of his arms were completely robotic parts. including visible cables, a couple of blinking lights, and an actual screen on the inside of his right forearm. Then, there was his face. He looked almost normal, had a short haircut like a soldier, and he had clear and attentive blue eyes. His mouth and nose were covered by what I thought was a mask, but I soon realized it was just a part of his face. When he spoke, his jaw didn't move. The sounds just came out of the speaker at the center of his mouth. "Hello," he said in a surprisingly normal and casual voice. "You can call me Eric. I know you're probably frightened, but I trust that you will be quick to catch up because out of the entire world, you're the only ones that really believe in time travel." "You came from the future?" I asked him breathlessly as I got up from the floor and with trembling legs. My excitement couldn't be contained. Yes. 100 years in the future, to be exact, he replied. Although he couldn't smile, his blue eyes looked pleased. But then he frowns, and we could see clearly he looked more than a little upset. "But I'm afraid I bring bad news." Behind me, Sam was helping Kiana get up. "Couldn't you just come to say hi?" Sam asked him. What kind of bad news?" Kiana added. Eric's entire body visibly tensed. When he spoke, I felt chills run down my body. He said, "I have witnessed horrors beyond your imagination." After a tense pause, Sam dared to break the silence and asked what the three of us were thinking. "How can we help you?" Our friend from the future relaxed slightly and proceeded with his explanation. "You will live to see your time machine work," he announced, and we barely contained our excitement to continue listening to him. "A few years from now, the first cyborg will successfully come to life. This form of existence will multiply at an absurdly fast pace. But obviously there will be resistance to us. It started diplomatically, but it quickly turned violent. We started a war, all of us against each other. A group of people managed to infect us cyborgs with the virus that will kill us, but first turn us into killing machines to ruin the last of our reputation. A few of us were sent back in time to different parts in history to find a cure and return with it. Everyone has failed. I'm the last one. If you can't cure me, and I can't help you build your machine on time, all of humanity will be lost in my timeline. Please, help us all." It was like every time this cyborg opened his mouth, we had to have a full minute to process this information. But he was right. We were probably the only 3 people on the planet who could process the information, understand it, and do something about it. But first, there was something very important we needed to know. Are you infected?" Kiana asked him. Her voice was trembling. He had just said the virus turned cyborgs into killing machines. I still didn't know how exactly Eric's body works, but he reacted as any human person would. I saw him gulp nervously, take a deep breath, and ball his hands into fist. "Yes," he admitted at last. "You should probably keep any weapons away from me." The 3 of us took sharp intakes of breath. It was Samantha who took the first step forward, still holding onto her screwdriver. "Well," she said, "let's get you fixed up, Eric. We have to save humanity." Immediately we got to work. We realized how difficult it would be. Eric knew just enough about time travel machines to guide us into what we needed to do. But it would be useless if we couldn't save him. But very quickly, he turned into a real nightmare. It was obvious there was something deep inside him bothering him. He tried to fight it, but he was in so much pain, and he was so terrifying when the virus started taking over. We connected Eric to our computers, but he yanked his arms away. We tried to talk to him, but he grabbed me by the neck and lifted me from the ground. We tied him to a table and he screamed and cursed and shook furiously. We feared for our lives like never before. The virus was monstrous. His blue eyes were burning red. The skin of his face turned sickly gray. The lights on his arm blinked a desperate red, and the screen on his arm displayed more and more desperate warnings, along with messages. Sometimes it was from his own brain trying to communicate with us, but the virus intervened with ominous messages in the middle. The screen said, "Please, help me. I'm in so much pain. Please, don't let me die. Please, don't let me kill you." It makes me want to destroy all of you, break you apart, tear out your limbs, burn you alive, make you suffer. Please, that's not me. That's not me. That's not me. We worked for 2 days straight. We only made the shortest of breaks just to keep ourselves alive. We had to spend every penny we had to our name. Sam's hands were covered in cuts and burns and her clothes dirtied beyond salvation. Kiana and I had bruises and bandages all over from the times Eric failed to resist the virus and attacked us. Our neighbors called the police once after hearing the cyborg cries of pain and fury. It was a nerve-wracking occurrence, but we finished work on the machine. When we were sure it was ready, we started crying. We still had to save Eric, and the virus was too strong. "You can't save me!" he yelled. But he was crying too. "I'm going to free myself and kill you all, and prevent these monsters from ever being created, and..." He suddenly stopped moving. He froze completely. We held our breath, scared for a moment that we killed him instead. Eric, in an even more frightening display of strength, finally broke through the chains we had put on him. We thought we were dead, but then he calmly walked to the center of the platform of our machine. We couldn't see him smile, but his blue eyes were grateful and joyous enough for us to understand the miracle. "Thank you," he said. "Now please send me back home."